everyone. I wanted to do something a little different since we have an awesome video in store. So, welcome to my review video. I am Miss Luxury Collector and this is going to be our Showdown comparison video of these three replica bags, the Louis Vuitton Speedy 30 in the Damier Azur canvas. So let's take a closer look, shall we? Yes, I think we shall. Alright, let's get started. So, to start off, I have made a sheet, a little chart, and what I am going to do is, as I am going through each topic, such as canvas, hardware, glazing, whoever has the best, I'm going to award 1 point, and then at the end of the review, whoever has the most points clearly will be the best bag out of these three. And yes, for those who have asked, the best one I will be keeping and the others will be up for resale. So that's some good news, so I hope you enjoy the video. Alright, so let's start off by taking a look at the sellers. In green here I have the Old Cobbler, who has been around for a while. Some people love him, some people absolutely hate him. I actually purchased this bag second because this was my first Damier Azur Speedy purchase from Midoria Bags in the pink. But there was an issue with customs, so I do want to do a shout out to the amazing seller. And then last but definitely not least is Tony in the orange, and with Tony he has a reputation of having the best Speedies, so I thought I would give him a try, and let's get into more detail. So just for your information, when we look inside I will show you the date code and discuss that, but for your knowledge of discussing the canvas, with Old Cobbler, he has a date code of FL2118. With Midoria Bags, the date code is SP0127. And with Tony, the date code is SA4168. All of them would be originating in France, although SA could be Italy as well. But since it says made in France, we'll go by it's made in France. So starting off, let's evaluate the actual quality of the canvas. So maybe not the color, but the quality. So they all are about the same as far as with the actual feeling of them and their texture. They really are all the same. I would say that Tony and OC feels a little more smooth, to more buttery rather than Midoria Bags, but that's really hard to tell. But if I had to say who felt the absolute best, I would have to say Tony. So I am going to award 1 point to Tony. And moving on, I want to discuss the canvas color. So as I had said in a previous video, none of these are authentic, they're all replicas, and even with the authentics, they all vary. So with my research, based on all the research I've done and the authentic Damier Azur canvases that I have seen, I believe that the blue is to be a true navy and a vivid blue, a vivid navy blue. And by vivid, I mean not muted, not dull, bright, but not a vivid blue as in bright. It needs to be a navy, that deep navy. And for the cream color, it really varies. So it's definitely not supposed to be white. It could be close to off-white, but I don't know how else to describe it other than cream. But that really varies as well. And of course it's going to vary with wear, just like the Panchetta would and the glazing color would. So I didn't think, or I personally don't think, that any of these canvas in the Damier Azur are close to the original. With Midoria Bags, the blue is a little too vivid. But I would say the cream is correct, maybe on the lighter side. The reason I say that is a little too white, but it shouldn't be too creamy either. I would say that both the Old Cobbler and Tony is very, very, very similar. So it's really not much of a variation, although I think that Old Cobbler is a little less muted than Tony's. Tony, Old Cobbler, and I'm switching them around. It's like, where's the ball in the cup game? So Tony's is a little more muted and the Old Cobbler is a little more vibrant, but I would not say that any of them look identical to the authentic. But if I had to put a score next to one of them, I think I'm going to award the Old Cobbler a point for the color of his canvas being closest to the authentic. Let's see. I want to quickly touch base on the dimensions, as one of my followers asked me to do. I did some pre-measurements in order to save some time on this video. So the authentic height is supposed to be 11.8. So starting off with the Old Cobbler, the height of this bag is 11.8. So he was actually it's a she, I gotta get out of the habit of saying he. She was the only one that came in close. With Tony was 12 inches. So Tony was the highest and over. And then Midoria Bags came in at 11.75, so actually under. So just for length, I will give it to Old Cobbler. The width of the authentic is supposed to be 8.3 inches. These, they all sort of varied and they were all about 7 to 8 inches. The slimmest one was Midoria Bags, that was about 7 or 7.5 inches. And the reason I'm saying that is because I measured it from both the leather piping to the leather piping at its lowest point. And then I also, because it was so far off, I also went to the bottom and where I thought it would be most square, I measured there, and that's why I have such two different drastic measurements. So Midoria Bags width would probably be the most that's off, it's too thin, and Tony and the Old Cobbler would be the closest as well. And then for the height of the authentic bag is 6.7 inches, and none of them came that close. They were actually a whole inch, if not more, off. Kind of concerning. So starting off with the OC's height was 8.2 inches, so close but still too tall. Tony's height was exactly 8 inches, so that would be the closest one because I have Midoria coming in at 8.25, so way over height. So if really I had to put them from shortest to tallest, it would be in this order, and you can kind of somewhat tell that that's the case. So for the order of measurements being closest to the authentic, I am going to award a point to Tony. Look at Tony getting ahead with 2 points. So one of my viewers asked me about the dimensions for the handle drop. So I didn't pre-measure that, so I will. So with the Old Cobbler, I am looking at a handle drop of about 4 inches. I don't see much variation. So let's see. With Midoria Bags, the handle drop is a 3.5. And with Tony, the handle drop is about 4 as well. So Old Cobbler and Tony, the handle drop is a 4, and Midoria Bags, the handle drop is a 3.5. And actually, the authentic handle drop I know is about to be 3.5 inches to 4 inches. So they would be in the accurate range. So while we're on measurements, why don't we go ahead and measure the actual strap? I did not want to mix up my straps, so I made sure to keep everything together. So I keep them all separate so I wouldn't mix them up. So here are all the straps. The authentic strap is to be between 40 inches to 47 inches because, as you know, it's adjustable. I just want to compare, and unfortunately this is going to be off camera, but I just want to compare the length. So they were all about the same, except Tony's was drastically shorter. Well, not drastically. Tony's was shorter. So Tony's actually measured shorter. Just do this. There's their lengths in the order. So this one belongs to Midoria Bags. Second one is Old Cobbler. Last one is Tony's, and Tony's was shorter. And by shorter, I mean at its absolute longest, measuring at 40 inches. And also they were quite different. Midoria Bags had all of these second loops with this piece, but the OC didn't have that. They only had one, and Tony only had one. So that's surprising. I liked that the OC and Tony's, I think the problem is the actual holes are not in the correct spot. So you can see Tony, there's much more of an overlap than the Old Cobbler based on where they're located at the last hole. So that might be a reason, but I like how it covers the Panchetta, the part of the strap on the other side. Both of them do. So if there's any mistakes or gluing issues, you can't see it. But with Midoria Bags, that's not the case. Look at how short it is. Barely covers the gluing. Does a better job covering it on the second half, but failed to do so on the first half. So interesting. All right, so I just made sure that I did all accurate measuring, and as I said, the authentic states online that it should be between 40 inches and 47 inches for the 30 Speedy, and I have Midoria Bags coming in at the longest at 44 inches. I have the Old Cobbler coming in at 43, so just a little bit under, and then I have Tony coming in at 40 at the shortest. So clearly there's an error with Tony's, I believe. So as we know, the hardware is supposed to be a mixture of shiny and matte finish, but this part is supposed to definitely be shiny. So they all have the correct logo, they're all shiny. They all have the correct matte finish, and I would go as far as saying that maybe even Tony's is a little more on the gold side than the brass side, as it should be. As far as the Panchetta, they all did a good job on the Panchetta. It is good. They did all a good job on the stitching, on the strap. It is supposed to be that darker color, and I would say that Midoria Bags has the worst glazing. The Old Cobbler has a shiny glazing on the strap, which is absolutely incorrect. So he would be out of the running for that. And then Tony seemed to have gone on the light side, being more erring on a side of caution when painting the straps. So I would put him in second place, I guess. So that's it on the straps. Whew. That was a lot of work. So one of the viewers asked me to determine which seller had the best Panchetta, and I think they all have great Panchetta. On the handles especially, on the chaps as well. All the Panchetta is really good. I was surprised though to see that the Old Cobbler had some wrinkling going on the side. But that's about it. So no one else had that wrinkling effect that I see, but they're all really good. And they're all real Panchetta, so they will all patina if you put them out in the sun or do some conditioning treatments, so keep that in mind. So in regards to my point system, I am going to award a point to all of the sellers for their Panchetta, as it is all good quality. And I want to move right along to the glazing, especially on the handle. So you've already heard me discuss the glazing on the shoulder strap, but I want to talk about the glazing on the actual handles and on the chaps. So I have to say that I was most disappointed with Midoria Bags and Old Cobbler's glazing. There were a lot of errors as far as it overlapping on the chaps. They all do have a shiny color to it, and they all are about red and a bright red too. So I would say the seller who has the darkest glazing would probably be the Old Cobbler, but his glazing is really bad. So on the authentic, it states that you are not supposed to be able to see any glazing when looking straight on at the chaps. You're not supposed to see it around the side at all. The chap is supposed to be ultimately that thin that you wouldn't see it. But the Old Cobbler has that too. So if I was gonna award a point for who has the darkest, most true to the authentic glazing, I would say it's the Old Cobbler. But if I had to award a point for who has the best glazing overall, as being able to color in the lines and having the overall feel, I would say I would award a point to Tony. So I am going to award a point to both of them. Fair is fair, even though life isn't fair. All right, so that's the glazing. Since we were just talking about chaps, I'm gonna go ahead and start discussing the chaps. So the chaps are the newer model, which obviously due to the date code that I informed you of for all of these bags, all of these chaps should have that puffiness and should not be flat. So they all are puffy, so I am happy with that. The variation of their the puffiness does vary. So I would say the puffiest would have to be Tony's. Then I would definitely say Midoria Bags is next, and last I would say is the Old Cobbler, who feels the most flat and the least puffiest. Now, as far as the chaps for the stitching, as you may know, because I have made a post about this before, the stitching, you should have 4 stitches on the top. You should have 4 stitches on the top. On the top side, you should have 8 stitches, and on the bottom, you should have 6. So I went ahead and previously counted them all, and they do accurately have the correct stitching, but I do notice that all of the stitching is doubled up on one side or the other. Also, for my individual review video, I did mention that Tony had an error with one of the chaps with the stitching that was a little off. It wasn't straight. So I unfortunately really don't want to award any points for the stitching on the chaps. I really don't. So I don't think I'm going to award a point. I have to say, if I had to award a point, it would be to Tony but I'm not going to award a point for any of the stitching on the chaps. I have only a little bit left to cover on the exterior of the bags, and that is the heat stamp of the size. So they all do have a heat stamp on the side of the bag that indicates that it is the size 30. Now the Panchetta on the side should overlap that 30, so you can't see it when it's just sitting here, but you can see it when it's pulled down. So I would say the one who has it the worst, where the heat stamp is too high, would be Old Cobbler. Yes, this is Old Cobbler, and I think the heat stamp is too high. Midoria Bags and Tony, so this one's Midoria Bags and this one's Tony, does have the correct heat stamp on the size. Now, I know that I had said in my individual reviews that I was concerned about the heat stamp logo, and I am. The best heat stamp logo is going to be Old Cobbler. It is the right depth, it has that definition, it's the right size. With Midoria Bags, it is way too small and not accurately stamped. It's not deep enough. And then for Tony's, it is way too light. It's not deep enough. So, Old Cobbler, then Tony, then Midoria Bags for the heat logo. So I will give Old Cobbler a point for that. I completely almost forgot the most important selling feature, which is why I chose Midoria Bags first, is because what was most important to me besides canvas color was alignment. Alignment, yes, alignment of the chaps and where they fell along the canvas. So as you probably know, on the Speedy 30, that the chaps should fall within 6 squares in from the side. So all 3 of these do fall in 3 squares from the side, but they have different alignment on if they're high or low or not. So I think the Midoria Bags is closest to the authentic. It does fall 6 over from the side. And yes, on the authentic, you do experience a cutoff. We've seen that on the authentics, so that is true. But alignment and where it falls in the box, it should be almost exactly on the line of the white and the blue box, but it should be a little high up. That's how you can see it with that. And then I would say that the OC comes in second place because it does come a little far in. It is 6 over again, but it does come a little farther in. It should be a little closer to the blue box, and it's a little too high. I shouldn't be seeing this much of that blue box on either side. And then I would say that Tony definitely comes in last place as he's too low. So Tony has the best box alignment as far as 6 in, but this is too low. It's almost to the bottom of this box, touching the next line, and that's not close to authentic. So if I had to award a point for the best alignment, I would have to say that I would have to award Tony the point just because of the alignment on the squares, that they are not cut off as much as they are cut off on Midoria Bags. Midoria Bags is the most cut off, and then the Old Cobbler would be the second as far as the cut off, but Tony would be the third. So I would say that Tony deserves the point for alignment. While we're still talking about the canvas, I do want to just touch base on the Louis Vuitton logo. They are all in the correct spot of the bag, and they all are vivid. I think Midoria Bags has the best font as it being so vivid, but that could be due to the lightness of the canvas. So those are my thoughts on the alignment. As far as the interior, all the interiors of the bag are about the same. They shouldn't be much different. It is that tan cream color because it is the Damier Azur canvas, so it is neither red nor the dark brown as you see with the monogram canvas or with the Damier ebony canvas. It is the light color. Like I had said, I will show you the date code. So this is Old Cobbler with his FL date code, or her FL date code. I keep saying his. We always think the sellers are a male, but no, they're not. Who runs the world? Girls. So this is Midoria Bags SP date code. And this is Tony's SA date code. I doubt you can see any of those, but if you look at the individual reviews, you'll get a better idea. All the pockets are really the same quality. I would have to say that Old Cobbler and Midoria Bags has a thicker canvas material, and Tony's is a little cheap, surprisingly. So I am, at least for the interior pocket, I'm gonna reward Midoria Bags a point. Let's just check all the zippers. Midoria Bag seems to be a little rough, but Old Cobbler and Tony seems to be decent. Since no one's really gonna go in and look at the interior of your bag, I'm not sure that it exactly matters, the spacing and depth and quality of the date codes, but that would be something to consider if you were really keen on it. Also, this piece of material should look like this, with a nice oval shape. Sometimes it is too long, like you can see with Tony's where it's a little longer. I can't show you two at once. It's a little longer and that's inaccurate. At least still authentic. Midoria Bag seems to be okay with their oval shape as well. Also want to touch on the O-ring on the inside. The Old Cobbler seems to have wrinkling in the vegeta on the interior. Midoria Bags seems to almost be a little crooked. And Tony's is the wrong shape, length, size, and has an error where it just wasn't sewn correctly. You can see the vegeta on the back side is popping out. That shouldn't be that way. Again, not many people are going to see the inside of your bag, so that would be your personal preference. But I would take off a point for that. So Tony really lost altogether with his interior of his bag. Word for the best interior of the bag would go to Old Cobbler. So I really don't think I've forgotten anything. I've touched upon everything I can think of, right? Right? I think so. Just as a review, we touch base on the canvas quality, the canvas color. We touch base on the hardware, all of the hardware. We touch base on the vegeta. We touch base on the glazing. I don't know, the interior of the bag, the date code. the heat stamping, the trademark logo. I think we really touched base on it all. I do have to say that the winners are in, and I have Old Cobbler in first place, I have Tony in second place, and I have Midoria Bags in third place. But they're not really that far off. They're all off by 1 point each, and they all have their positives and negatives, which is why I had to do this review in the first place, is just to explain why I didn't love one over the other, and I'm not ranting and raving about one over the other. They each have their own pros and cons. I hope this review video was very informative and will help you make your decision. And keep watching. I'll keep posting more and doing more reviews to help you out. But thank you for watching, and thank you for being awesome. Have a great day, everyone.